Hi, I'm Alex. I'm from PA, and I love Warhammer. So much so that I've painted well over 2,000 points of Chaos Space Marines and about 1,500 points of Orcs. Now, I've shown a lot of my minis before in school art shows, and I've gotten a lot of feedback and congratulations, but for whatever reason, I've felt that these minis that I've painted have all lacked the finishing touch of a truly great mini. So it's a good thing that over vacation, I got about 500 points of Death Guard, which include 7 Plague Marines led by a Foul Blightspawn, 5 Blightlord Terminators led by my Lord of Virulence, and some cultists over here. Favorite models of mine include this Plague Champion with Plague Fist and Plasma Gun, the Plague Spewer Plague Marine, who's got this cool little brace for his effectively Plague Hose, Fly McGee over here with Blight Launcher, and this bog standard Plague Marine. I also really liked how this Blight Lord look, although he never really stayed together all that much. This other Blight Lord, which was a lot more compliant with sticking together with glue. And of course, the Big Daddy himself, the Lord of Virulence, who I've named Lord Sabak. So for my paint collection, I'm going to be using matte black as our basic primary color, Banshee Brown for certain loincloths and teeth and skin, Alien Purple for loincloths and goop, Pure Red for the gun casings and dried up blood, Matte White for mixing and dry brushing, Gunmetal Silver for the trim and metallic bits, Tester's GI Gray for that more dry brushing, Tester's Rust to put on the gunmetal, Strong Tone Wash from Army Painter, and then Anti-Gloss Varnish. So the first thing we're going to do to make these Plague Marines look good is we're going to fill in the gaps that our primer didn't catch. So we're going to take our matte black, take the model we want to paint, douse it in some water, work off most of the water till it's nice and damp, and then just go to town on the gray parts. So here, all around the belly, the crooks and crannies that weren't reached, so like this knee that was covered by the fist, in here especially, and all around in general. And so, when we're done finishing this guy up and the rest of the squad, it'll look completely black. And don't worry if this paint doesn't quite look as glossy as the primer when it's dry. We'll unglossify it all with this step, with the anti-varnish. And with that, our little Plague Champion doesn't have any weird gray crevices that we can easily see. We're going to do this with the rest of the Plague Marines. So everyone in this squad here is going to get the old gap-filling treatment. So they all look nice and completely black and are ready for our dry brushing stage. Here's a bit. I forgot to mention that the paint scheme I'm going for is partially inspired by a video by Midwinter Minis, a painting channel, called The Bringers of Decay, where he mixes these Plague Marine kits with the more traditional Chaos Space Marines. So credit where credit's due. Thank you, guy from Midwinter Minis. And I hope to see your next video, that gigantic unclean one, someday. We're going to cover the gaps on this Biologist Putrefier. So the big tank on his back, some of those details. We're then going to get the cultists. Basically, mortal people who have turned to the dark gods for salvation from their oppressive regime, the Imperium. And now that I'm back from the shower, I'm going to do the Blight Lords. Especially here, because this axe wasn't really dusted all that much. And lastly, we're going to give the plugging treatment to Lord Sabak over here, who actually looks pretty filled, but whatever. Okay, so now that we've made them completely black, we're going to dry brush all of the Space Marine miniatures with this Tester's Gray. Now, for those who don't know, dry brushing is basically where you take a large brush and some paint, dip it in, and work out the excess. And then you take your miniature and then you brush. Yeah, that's good. And then you brush a brush. Now, you gotta be careful. You don't want to get in the cracks with your dry brushing. You just want to catch it on the most outright details. So you can already see, well, you can actually make out details on the miniature, but you still have that dark recess. Feel me? So we're just going to keep on doing this until the entire miniature is effectively dry brushed, except for certain parts. Wow, look at that. They already look 7 times better than they did before. And you can actually see them for once. So these are the Plague Marines and the Foul Blight Spawn leading them. And now we're going to move into the Blight Lords and Lord Sabak. And so now we're going to do the Blight Lords using the same trick we used on the Plague Marines. Damn, I'm good. So I'm keeping the models that I've already painted their loincloths around because I need to paint a second layer to make their loincloths one color. So there's no obvious like patches where it appears to be thinner. Feel me? You know, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like this color for the loincloths now that I look at it. I mean, it just looks too similar to the rust over here. So, tell you what, I'm going to switch to alien purple, but I'm going to keep all the wires and guts and all that stuff this color. How's that sound? So, this wasn't a complete waste, and we'll keep moving on despite it. Okay, so far I've done the loincloths and tongues and all the bile on the Plague Marines. Done those all purple. Now we can use this purple color, alien purple, to represent the goop that the foul blight spawn carries on his back and in the strange little hose. So that's exactly what we are going to do to make this even more nasty than it already is. So paint that here and there. Yeah. So far, this is looking great. Already so much better. Okay, so now let's give the Blight Lords the same treatment as the Plague Marines, as we haven't really worked with them all that much. So we're going to give them the dark undertone, the reddish undertone for all their guts and such. And then we're going to give their loincloths and goopy details some alien purple. These guys are looking great. We got our undertones for the guts. We got our loincloths out the wazoo. And I think they are looking pretty good right now. So we haven't really focused on the cultists at all this entire video. So let's get on that trade, starting with their skin. Alright, so the cultists are going to be a lot simpler than the actual Marines and Terminators. So to start, we're going to give their skin a nice base coat of Banshee Brown from Army Painter. And then when that dries, we're going to dry brush it with Army Painter's Matte White. Got me? Great. You want to know something funny? We ordered this stuff right as the GW warehouse in England shut down. So, and then we went on vacation the very day all of this stuff arrived. Actually, the cultists were here for a while now, but all the rest of that stuff. So I was waiting weeks, and I had planned exactly how I was going to paint this stuff, what the color scheme was, and I even had my own lore. We'll talk about that when we get back to the Plague Marines and such, so yeah. You know, I mentioned a couple of channels before, but I think the main one that got me into the game of Warhammer 40k is definitely Play on Tabletop, those Canadian dudes. Which part of Canada are they in? Like Ottawa or something? No clue. They're great. Thanks, Play On. You're providing me a lot of entertainment off screen when I get sick of Spotify. Okay, so I decided to paint all of these guys' robes as alien purple because the ultramarine blue took twice as many coats to get some actual consistency, and the black just didn't look that great. Also, you may have been looking at these two test models I had lying around. They're Perry miniatures with some leftover Imperial Guard kill team bits, the Kriegers. I think I might use the others as like Traitor Guard once I'm finished this small 500 point army. So yeah. All right, I need a break from cultists. So for the Plague Marines and the Blight Lords, before we start doing the metal trim and then the rust, we're going to paint most of these like red bits that these guys have. So like the pauldron here with some Banshee Brown to make them look like they haven't been skinned alive, or they don't look like a sun-dried tomato anymore. So yeah, let's do that. I'll be honest, I've painted about 2 Plague Marines this way, and I don't like it. So I'm going to undo most of it, but I'm going to keep the pauldrons this way. And I'm going to paint whatever teeth and pimples are on the other Plague Marines. See you then. Yeah, there we go. So now we're going to tackle the metal and then the rust effect. And then our Plague Marine, well, our Plague Marines won't be quite done yet, but then all we'll have to do is the wash. So yeah. Okay, we're looking good. Now we're gonna move on to the metallics for the Blight Lords and then the cultists. So, as I discussed before, this warband is called Lord Sabac's Plague Mongers. And my idea for them is that they are a Black Legion warband, still Nurgle, but they're part of the Black Legion. And so what they specialize in is causing terror throughout population centers. So they will go for the big targets. They usually work in tandem with other war bands, the Black Legion, to achieve their goals. And during the Plague Wars, they joined the rest of the Death Guard in that ordeal against the Ultramarines. So, yeah. Another interesting lore tidbit I've thought up of is the original founder of the Plague Mongers being a corrupted loyalist, a Raven Guard. And so on the ship that they have, the entire warband goes on a massive manhunt for him until the guy, the Foul Blight Spawn, and his squad accidentally encounters him. And he's like been hiding as like a part of the ship, kind of like that one guy from the Pirates of the Caribbean sequel, I think. One of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. And so this guy, this original Chaos Lord, I'm going to name him Chaos Lord Halcor. He was a Lord of Contagion, by the way, but he absolutely decimates the Foul Blight Spawn and his squad until being sprayed into one of the demonic gnashing mouths that can be found in the diseased ship. Feel me? So now that he's gone and the warband has no direction, his successor, Lord Sabak, decides to join the Black Legion so the warband doesn't fall into irrelevancy and die. So if that's any good, let me know, and if it's terrible, let me know faster, because I still have a couple ideas on what they could be. Okay, looking pretty good. So now we're gonna move on to the cultists. And today is Thursday at the time of recording, and I need to tell you that on Saturday I will be going to a theater camp in Orlando, Florida. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to film there, but if I do, I'll be in a different location, so I'll be in a dorm, so it'll probably be a lot noisier there. So just be ready for that if I decide to record there. All right. See ya. Okay. Guess what, fellas? We're back from camp after a whole month. All right. Now for the most important step, at least for the Plague Marines and Blight Lords. We're going to start applying this rust effect that I got in like Hobby Lobby along with this little Gundam kit. And we're just going to try and slowly brush it on. And if the And if the brighter metal doesn't shine through this rust effect, I'll try stapling on some more gunmetal and maybe some like bronze. Sounds good? Okay. All right, so those are the basic things on the Plague Marines all done. We have our dark gray color, main color, our rust effect, and the purple cloaks, bile, and the tentacles. Now we're gonna move on to the Blight Lords, and then we're gonna finish up on the cultists before doing all the detail stuff. So like the various grenades and heads these guys carry. Something that I think is both fascinating and really annoying is that the rust paint and the gray paint that I'm using, both from testers, just absolutely ruin the brush. Like after I'm done painting them, it dries, and then it sticks like glue, and it's really hard to get out. And I think a lot of the brushes I've used aren't going to be reusable unless they're specifically for more Plague Marines and such, and Blight Lords and all that, because they just absolutely destroy the brush. Feel me? So I'll keep them around, I guess, if I ever want to re-tackle Nurgle again. But yeah, it's an awful shame, and I wish that didn't have to happen. But hey, they look great, and it really gives the right effect that I'm going for. So I can't complain too much. Okay, so now that I've finished the rust on these guys, I noticed that I forgot a lot of details on them. So over the next few hours, I'm going to go over these details and then the details for the Plague Marines before finally giving the cultists some love. Okay, so the first color I went for with the details was this bone color. So I did the barrel for the Blight Launcher, various teeth, the big cables for the Lord of Virulence, the heads for this guy, and this guy's toenails and such. Real nasty. And his teeth. This guy's small-armed claws. And yeah, so next we'll move over to like the bits of purple bile that I missed, and then we'll give the Plague Marines the same treatment before finally rounding back to the cultists because they're cultists and no one cares about them. Alright, so there are a couple more things than just the bile. So I went over with green on one of these heads. I'm going to go with brown on another. And I painted any of the Nurglings that showed up on the Blight Lords. And there's one on this guy, this little Nurgling on the Foul Blight Spawn. So yeah. Okay, so now that the little bits of purple that need to remain are done, I'm gonna go over all these tree bark horn like things with Army Painter's Leather Brown. And I'll admit something. This project has gone way beyond the paints I'd set up originally. So I'm just gonna forego all of that and just paint with whatever I need to use. All right, so that's the leather brown done on all the Blight Lords. So this includes their horns, any wood bits, and let me check if I missed anything. Nope. And so while the leather brown paint is still wet, I'm quickly gonna jump back to the Plague Marines to not waste any paint, and then we'll finish off these Blight Lords before washes, of course. So, yeah. I think I'm going to have a bit of variation with these death heads that all of these plague marines have. So a couple will be brown, some will be a nice green, and yeah, I'm trying to get some variation in with this. All the wrappings and like leather straps are going to be brown though. Before we really start applying the finishing touches to all these guys, I noticed this one Blight Lord with an actual power axe instead of just a chain axe or plague weapon. So I'm briefly going to paint this purple with Army Painter's Alien Purple, Vallejo's regular matte purple, and whoops, and just some matte white. All right, that power axe is looking pretty mean. So now we're going to dry brush a lighter purple onto all of these guys as loincloths, capes, and all that. Make it just to make them look even more professional and grim dark. So this is including all the purple tongues and loincloths on the Plague Marines, all the capes and loincloths on the Blight Lords, and the cultist robes. Okay, so like with all the Marines, I dry brushed the cultists' robes and cloaks and such with a lighter purple. I don't think it really shows all that well on camera, but I can see it quite well. You can kind of see it. And I'm gonna start doing the details. So like the various straps using leather brown, maybe some of the horns and the pants and the boots and the wrappings. And then finally, I'm going to do the rusted metal. I think it's fairly obvious, or I have made it fairly obvious, that I don't really like the cultist sculpts. They have a similar problem to the Plague Marines, where they're extremely detailed for, a bunch of, you know, violent hobos with guns made of trash. But well, they aren't that bad. It's just that it's kind of a pain to get everything on them, like their hand wraps and these little chaos stars over here. Here, a lot of room for error. And this is all for a unit that is essentially just chaff and back line holders. But I mean, it isn't all bad. I mean, I had these guys lying around and I didn't want to spend more money for the other Death Guard chaff unit called Poxwalkers, which are basically you get a mob of 10 zombies with horns and stuff. And while that would be cool, I didn't want to spend like an extra 30 or so bucks on eBay just looking for one of those kits. I may paint them in the future if I ever decide to expand this army and take Poxwalkers for whatever reason, but I think I'm gonna stick with these cultists and have them be like, they're like Lord Sabac's tenders, and they're the guys hauling everything that he doesn't want to, basically. They're his personal staff. So, yeah, they're definitely going to be in the back line and whatever display or or battle, I'm putting them in. And I'm going to keep them there because that's what they're good for in every armor they show up in. And finally, that's the cultist mob pretty much done. I was going to finish them off with like this light dusting of metal on their metallic parts. But I'm going to be honest, there's a lot of room for error, especially on the skin here. And if I screw that up, it's going to be hard to get that almost Warboy from Mad Max effect back. So I'm going to call it here on these cultists. And now for the rest of the army, we are going to schlop on some lovely Quick Shade Strong Tone. And we'll start with these cultists, and then I'll try and test it on the various Marines. And yeah, that'll be that. Boom, that's the cultists all done. And I am never touching these guys again, save for games and displays. So, yeah, you guys are awesome. Just kidding, y'all suck. And now we're going to move on to the actually fun parts of the army. All right, we got some light at the end of the tunnel. I finished giving my Plague Marines all of their wash stage. And I've gone through, like, I've had to pour out more strong tone like 6 times between the cultists and the Plague Marines. I'm a bit, no, it's probably gonna take about just as much for the Blight Lords because there's only 6 of them as compared to 8 guys here and 10 over there. So yeah. Whew. I think that's that. Finally, I think I'm done with this project. Let's show it off. Wow. It's finally done. After about 2 weeks of painting with about a month in between, a month lull because I went to summer camp, I think these miniatures are the best I've ever painted. Ever. I'm extremely proud of them, and I hope that you think they're quite nice as well. I started this project in June 23rd, 2024, and put an end to it at August 3rd. So that is a long while, and I think what I've been able to accomplish in that time is pretty incredible. All right, so now that I'm done painting, I do still have a fairly modest selection of favorite models now that they're done. I still love the way Lord Sabak looks. I love this Blight Lord Terminator with a power axe, and I love Chunkalicious over here with his Plague Spewer and Chain Axe. I love Cyclops Plague Champion, and I love Cyclops Aspiring Champion. I love McFly over here, and I like this guy. And finally, I really like these 2 cultists. Well, not really like, but I like this guy because of the way his eightfold Star of Chaos scarring looks on his shoulder with the washes. And I like the cultist champion because he looks cool.